Charles, I felt this was an appropriate movie poster for us today because even asleep on the beach doing nothing, without lifting a finger, Joe Biden is one of the most effective destroyers of the United States of America. We're here in Union Square Park, the scene of a PS5 pop-up riot just days ago.
Right.
What was your take on that whole thing, Charles?
Well, I was actually down Broadway. Here's Broadway right here on 9th Street, between 8th and 9th Street in the Staples, doing something. And when I tried to get out of the store, they had locked us in. I said, what do you mean I'm locked in? I said, you can't go out. Why not? Because the rioters, we can't let them in. I said, what rioters? And I look outside and they're fucking Utes.
Oh, those rioters.
Yeah, but they were everywhere.
I know.
They were in the middle of the street. They were trying to rattle the door to get in.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And, it's the first time in my life that I've seen actual mayhem in here. And there were helicopters up, a lot of helicopters up for a while.
So we have some more interesting kind of comparison data, Charles, because that guy, Kai Sennett, he's got something between 4 and 7. I've heard different reports. I saw 4.7 million subscribers on YouTube. I didn't go look at the guy on Twitch, but I don't know, maybe he has more followers on Twitch than YouTube, but he's in the let's say sub 10 million, which is a lot.
Exactly.
However, I compared it to Mr. Beast, who has 174 million and did a public event like that when he opened a hamburger restaurant in New Jersey, and a similar kind of number of people, like a very large shopping mall was completely filled up with people. Then last night, Louis Rossman, who used to run that very unique computer repair store on 26th Street, he's got close to 2 million. He's like 1.8 million.
Wow.
And he said, he's a very smart and scientific guy. He said he's been doing these meetups for quite a while, and the way he controls the crowd is if he doesn't want a lot of people to show up, he'll announce it an hour before he's doing it, and then only like 60 people show up. But he said that he tested that and did it with several days of notice, several weeks of notice, and he was talking about people in the hundreds.
Right.
Now, people will say, oh yeah, but this other guy is more popular and everything. But again, as a comparison, it should be a reasonable percentage increase, not, that's something between 1 and 10,000 people who were out. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, I didn't see the meat of it. I would say there were certainly 1,000 people in Broadway. And
it's crazy.
It's crazy. And they were all, I remember it was quite a while ago being a teenager, and you think you're invincible, and you get a crowd of teenagers together, and one's trying to out teenage the other.
Right.
And there are no authority figures around, no men, powerful men to say, listen, douchebag, you're going to ruin your life.
Right.
If you actually escalate this. Do you want to go that way?
Actually, yeah, we can go that way because I'm reminded of what I wanted to show you, Charles. There's something weird happening. This thing over here, that dazed.
It's gone.
So that was when I walked by it. They were handing out flyers maybe 2 weeks ago, and they said, oh, we're one of only like 10 actually licensed weed stores, and now it's closed.
Right.
Oh, look, 33 Union Square West is the address there.
Now let's see if we can't find a shadier place.
Yeah. I don't know how those guys got the license or why it's closed, but something weird is going on. People have noticed that the Weed World trucks are gone. That place we walked by on 7th Avenue closed by the
pure
cops.
Sun the whole way.
So what should we do?
I mean, I think it's more.
Okay, sure.
A little bit of shade here.
It's very hot today, but it's nice. It's not humid.
Yeah.
Oh, that must be the artist of those Obama and other paintings. I think we saw that guy last week.
Yeah.
He's better than Hunter Biden.
Some passed out drunk is better than Hunter Biden.
So we're going to go in depth today, Charles, on Joe Biden's extensive efforts to destroy the country, but we need to do that in the First Amendment forum because the fascists who control YouTube will not allow us to speak freely. People can join us there by visiting odyssey.com/@crowdsourcethetruth, crowdsourcethetruth.substack.com, and subscribestar.com and patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth. What's on your mind today, Charles?
Well, it's really to the point, I think, now that we're in a place where thinking people have to admit that the American government and I think the UK government are up to no good, just to pick two, selling total bullshit as government sanctioned fact. For example, this Bidenomics stuff, as somebody who believes he understands finance and economics, maybe I don't, but I think I do. The notion that this oaf, this crooked fucking oaf, President Crapweasel, would get up there and in a dark, as Trump is being indicted yet again, do a dark Brandon video.
Oh, ridiculous with the coffee.
Where he's taking credit for creating 13.4 million jobs. Now that just on the surface, you should not, people are talking about misinformation, spreading misinformation.
Yeah.
Jack Smith wants to get, Trump off the airwaves for spreading misinformation. It is total misinformation to stand up and say that any president created a job, first of all. Presidents don't do that. At best, they create conditions, maybe with Congress, where
businesses
people
can create jobs.
Yeah. So for starters,
You didn't make that.
He didn't do that. But beyond that, what has happened is that people who previously had jobs prior to COVID have returned to work, in most cases to their old job.
And part-time without maybe the benefits.
And so it is a miserable economic performance this guy has. And yet he's simultaneously allowed to sick a special counsel whose indictment, I would argue, is less serious. It's less serious than Alvin Bragg's indictment, and it's less serious than any speech that Kamala Harris gives about community banks or anything else. I mean,
you don't want to consider the time and the moment in time where we're writing an indictment and how we feel in the morning about an indictment.
And the fact that now you get on a highway and you don't have to worry about your tires blowing out.
On your electric bus?
Which is what she said. But this is an unserious person who is weaving an unserious narrative with a bunch of unserious oafs working for him, Janet Yellen and others. And I honestly think we need a network moment where the average man, the average person just says, I'm sick and I'm tired of this. I'm not going to take this bullshit anymore. And I refuse to pay for this. I'm not doing this.
Mad as hell and not going to take it anymore.
Right, no, seriously, because it's just utter garbage. If you look at the economic releases, to stay on that for a second, every single one in recent months has been revised, is trumpeted as a success, and then the next month revised downward. Every single time. Every single time there's damaging information that finally makes it past the editors, into the mainstream. Every single time Trump is indicted or there's a raid or whatever, don't tell me that isn't coordinated. Just don't even try coordinated. Oh. Don't tell me.
Oh yeah. They all say the same exact things.
Right. And so I think the only piece of good news out of all this is, for example, David Brooks, who's an idiot, but he writes for the New York Times.
Well, that's not but.
Yes, and so he writes for the New York Times.
You're right.
But he had a piece out questioning.
Oh yeah, maybe we're the bad guys.
Right.
But wasn't he sort of not really? He's sort of sarcastic in that question.
I don't think so. I really do think I'm on this tear. I've been on the tear that unregulated globalism is cancer. I mean, it's horrible what's going on here. That these nation states, which at best can't properly function, can't enforce their laws if they're not all crooked, to surrender that to create an unregulated system where only billionaires can buy their way into the WHO and other councils of glory around the world.
Isn't this a fancy Javier high school?
This is Xavier. This is it's a Catholic school, but it's a top one.
Yeah.
And I think this is a soup kitchen here.
Maybe it's part of it. No?
It's no doubt.
Church?
I mean, it's Sunday, so I think they're waiting here for food. Which is, this is a sign that Bidenomics is being built
right
from the middle out and the bottom up.
Well, but I'm glad you raised that point, Charles, because I was thinking about it this morning. I mean, we've spoken about this a lot for a long time, but this whole push toward disinformation and the sort of failed start of the Disinformation Governance Board, and now all this stuff that's happening through international and domestic NGOs. You know, Elon Musk announced this lawsuit against the Center for Countering Digital Hate. This is a movement to control and stipulate the truth, to stipulate reality. They want to be able to put out a statement and say that's information, and what you're talking about is misinformation, because it's the ultimate power to control reality.
And it's extra constitutional, specifically
Right.
violates the First Amendment. And it really, it's amazing, you know, that idiot is really a criminal idiot, unindicted criminal.
Not narrowing it down.
Al Sharpton. He gets on his
Friends with Shmuley.
how that moron has a television show is beyond me. But anyway, he's up there with his stapled stomach, thin as a rail, fancy suits, doesn't pay his income taxes, runs his nonprofit into the ground. That's how he finances his lifestyle. Yeah, and he's a complete fraud. He was the #1 visitor to the Obama White House, which tells you all you need to know about Obama. And that asshole is up on television on Friday on his show saying, Thomas Jefferson and James Madison would never try to overthrow a government.
But then he did a second one.
Did he?
Which was even worse. Because he was talking to a I forget which congressperson it was, but he said, Reverend Sharpton, we don't have a democracy, we have a constitutional republic. It's a republic. He was like, oh, really? It's not a democracy. I'm going to hold you to that. And he was just digging in, not making the argument. I have heard informed intellectual people make the subtly detailed argument about the differences and non-differences between democracy and constitutional republic, but Sharpton seemed to have never heard the word republic before.
He's a complete idiot. I mean, and I think, no, we're in the middle of something.
We're busy, thanks.
No. Why? This is not your show.
Just get a picture of him so the police can,
Is he following us?
Yeah, he's not. He's busy trying to get famous somewhere else now.
Yeah, Jesus. I mean,
Sharpton.
Yeah, I mean, it's testament to the fact that our educational system sucks. I mean, the founders, when they weren't smoking dope in the morning,
they might have actually. They grew hemp and stuff.
Yeah, I know. But the founders were keen students of history, and really, those who say you shouldn't study history are basically
Who says that?
admitting. Well, many people say, let's not study it, let's make it.
Oh,
But we don't need to learn the lessons.
It's a good approach
history.
to anything, huh?
Right. We don't need to, learn the lessons of
Just
history.
reinvent the wheel every single time.
Let's fail again.
Yeah.
But so the founders read the classics in Greek, in Latin, and
they were like 20.
Many other languages, and they were intimately familiar with how democracy failed, and more familiar actually with the Cromwell period, where they executed a king in 1649, which was a horrific act at the time. It was an unfathomable act. And then they went off. It was the aging hippies. Probably.
I could tell that guy had something on his mind, but pointing the camera at him seemed to cure that.
Right. He was like, you need my permission.
He was going to say some shit.
No, Karl Marx. But anyway,
he's a little skinny, but same hairdo.
But so in Cromwell, they threw off a monarchy, and a monarch that was out of control, and behaving
badly
as if he were above the law, and he had his head cut off. Quick diet, kind of Christie needs to go on. I don't mean his head cut off, but his stomach. But so they experienced in England what happens when you go to mob rule, and they actually, in the end, begged King Charles' son to come back, and they negotiated and they changed, I think, the governance approach, but they've had a monarchy ever since. And I'm not arguing for a monarchy, but
we have that now with Joe.
No, we have a tyranny with Joe.
Right.
And where we are now with this is these people who think they're going to be on the right side of the government, and they'll have their government-approved speech, and they don't understand the precedent that's being set here. That there will be an election, I think the real polls show that Joe is not even in the toilet bowl. I mean, he might be in below 5%.
Tidy bowl man is throwing him a little ring.
Yeah. Can I get back
Life
to the
preserver.
shelf here? But I mean, he's hopeless. Everybody understands it. Kamala's dumber than dirt. And I think the real polls of likely voters, of which both sides, the main sides are doing, likely voters, properly weighted for Republican percent, Democrat percent, Independent percent. Those polls are going to show in a Biden-Trump matchup, Trump by 10. Now,
Right.
and this is before the mainstream that curates all the books, decides who gets on the talk shows, who gets on the magazine covers, who does the op-eds. Those people think they've rigged life, and that by now selling to the public around the world that Joe Biden can have the organs of state to print out bullshit about the economy and politics and the war in Ukraine and whatever, saying he's wonderful. But Donald Trump is not going to be allowed to talk. And
Right.
they think that that's going to sell. It is not going to sell. And, more and more people, I think, that the Democrats are counting on to vote for them are going to rush to the polls, I think. And they're creating a martyr in Trump.
Yeah.
And they're almost creating a religion in Trump.
Yeah.
You know?
Joe Rogan had a whole thing.
I know. And he has a few viewers.
Well, and the other thing is that he's in the past said things like he doesn't want to interview Trump, he doesn't want to help Trump. Now he said if it's Trump versus Biden, he's voting for Trump.
Right, and he's everyman. I mean, he's the kind of person who I think...
He's more than that, though, Charles. He's the guy that everybody wants to be in his crew. Like,
Right.
You want to go out to the bar with Joe Rogan because he's the cool guy that all the girls are going to come around, and I want to be Joe Rogan's buddy. That's even more than everyman.
Right.
He's like the leader of the gang.
There's some Biden.
Yeah, I see it.
Yeah, and really, it doesn't. You don't have to be nuanced and in the top 1% IQ-wise to see from 2017 to pre-COVID, America was kicking serious
Yep.
ass everywhere. Jobs were there. Jobs were the actual beneficiaries of the Trump economic boom were minorities and non-college educated men and women who saw their job prospects and their business
Everybody.
prospects. Everything was great.
Someone in my family who I can't mention because they would be ostracized because everybody thinks they're Democrat, voted Trump and said, my whole entire everything for my family has gotten so dramatically better under Trump that I'm just biting my
Right.
whatever and voting.
Right, and I think you're going to see people who forget the New York Times, forget the Wall Street Journal, forget ABC
No,
News
but-
and all that kind of stuff. People look at this shit show that is Biden. Everything the man touches turns to shit. Everything.
Yeah.
And every point he makes is basically, you can assume he's wrong and lying.
Yeah.
And you'd be very safe. Might be my second law, Anything Biden says is likely a lie.
Ortell's second law.
Right.
Yeah.
But anyway. So that I think is interesting.
But wait, there's people saying what's Ortell's first law? That is Google, what is it? Google anything plus fraud?
Yeah, and related to Clinton.
Right.
And chances are you will
Find it.
you'll find something interesting. Because fraudsters seek out other fraudsters.
Right.
And the Clintons are just epic fraudsters. In fact, I think I've mentioned that I moved, and in the process of doing that, I've managed to get a portion of my books out of boxes and onto shelves and put them alphabetically. So I have two bookshelves, big bookshelves of Clinton books, Clinton and 21st century related economic and politics stuff all in one thing. And Bill, I've got his My Lies, My Life.
I thought that was Greta for a second.
Yeah, look at these guys here.
I don't know. It's a coffee clutch.
So I've got the paperbacks paperback of my lice and the hardback of my lice, my line, whatever it is.
This is very expensive
And-
ice cream here.
Yeah, Belgian, I think. Or
Is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, that
And
makes sense.
this is another one of these restaurants. I just walked
Jack's
by it
Wife.
on University Place. I just
Jack's
noticed.
wife, Frida.
It must be obviously a chain. It's the same thing. But anyway, Chelsea's book is preposterous. The title of it is Governing Global Health. Who
Well,
asked
that's
you-
what they just started doing, isn't it?
Well, who asked you to do that? You're an idiot.
Bill Gates.
No, I mean, but Chelsea Clinton is a complete idiot.
I agree with that.
You know, an entitled idiot.
Charles, is that Elon Musk over there?
Don't know.
He has announced that if this I don't think he's going to be able to do in the way that he's put out. I think Elon Musk has a tendency to announce things and then kind of
Backtrack.
beat them into shape as they come closer to reality, and the final product is maybe a little bit not exactly what was initially promised. But he's saying that if you've been kicked off of Twitter or fired from your job for something that you said on Twitter, he's going to pay for your lawsuit or something like that. And then Donald Trump Jr. had an awesome response. He said, I got a big one. Where should I send the invoice?
Now, by Junior, you mean his son, or you mean
Trump Jr. tweeted that back at,
that's funny.
yeah. So I don't know what Elon Musk is going to do as far as paying other people's legal. That's weird. He does a lot of strange things.
Yeah. But so just beating Biden into submission here and the Bidenistas. You know, now what they're trying to say is Alito, Justice Alito, one of the 9 on the Supreme Court, he did an op-ed where he basically said to the legislator,
They can't
fuck
control.
you. I mean, we're co-equal and you
Right.
have no
You can't
say.
start packing our court. That's
Right.
like them saying we're going to eliminate half of Congress.
Right, exactly. So now that Durbin, who's a miserable piece of garbage from a senator from Illinois,
Durbin?
appropriately named Dickhead Durbin, you know, is now saying, well, Alito has to recuse himself,
Oh.
you know, from any Supreme Court case going forward.
Ah.
And I think that's where they're going now.
Attack the court.
Well, what they're going for, I think now, is this attempt to muzzle Trump.
Right.
While at the same time you have the Democratic Party and the mainstream media and academia 100% in for the fraud, Biden, is ridiculous. And you're not going to, I mean, you may get a crooked judge to uphold this.
A crooked judge? We're lucky if we get a judge who isn't crooked.
Right, but I think you're going to get to the Supreme Court on this. And I hope that the Supreme Court would lay down a very clear message that you cannot do this.
Yeah.
And that if you're going to go down a track of indicting a former president,
That's got to be solid.
in part for activities that happened while he was president, you better have belt and suspenders, not, you know, nothing but air.
Particularly while you're deflecting from all of the incredibly compelling and damning evidence that
Right.
proves that the sitting president is engaged in crimes. By the way, Charles, everything that you're talking about right here is standard practice for lawfare.
Right.
Controlling your attorney, getting you enjoined from speaking about the case so that you can't raise money or inform the public as to
Right.
what's going on. This is what they did to me. This is what they're doing to Trump. This is their standard play. It's important for people, and by people I mean not just our well-informed viewers who hear us talk about this all the time, but share this with news people who don't get it. Jack Smith is not just a corrupt prosecutor. He is a very practiced lawfare practitioner, and that is what he's doing. He does not care about the outcome of the trial. He cares about executing their goal here in the process.
Well, and it's important to mention, as people are starting to do now, that, you know, Jack Smith has a very checkered, to put it mildly, career running the Office of Public Integrity in the Department of Justice and failing in the Obama years, 2010 forward. I think he left in 14 or 15, failing to do his job in that section, which is to go after corruption. That section was created in the aftermath of Watergate. And as you might expect, if you're cynical like as I am and you are, knowledgeable and cynical, you would expect that the person holding that job to be crooked.
Well,
In fact,
we have almost no time, Charles. We're going to have to go into the in fact once we get to the First Amendment Forum. But one last thing that I want to add is that a lot of people have pointed to Jack Smith's time in the Public Integrity Office, but I think even more important than that, Charles, he entered the Eastern District of New York U.S. Attorney's Office in 1999 and
Under
remained there until under Clinton, but also with Andrew Weissman, a department that was completely polluted by Valerie Caproni, and she would
And Loretta
return
Lynch.
there, and Loretta Lynch. Caproni returns there in something like 2002. So all of these people work together, and when I start working with you and start helping you share your information to a larger audience, and also coming to my own conclusions about information that maybe you're not even looking into, accusing these people in court documents, Caproni could strike anything that I've said simply by saying this is scurrilous and false, get it off the record. And she hasn't done that because she knows it's going to come back to haunt her later, because she's been accused of corruption along with Weissman, along with Smith. And we're going to continue this conversation in just 5 minutes. Please join us. Become a sponsor on odyssey.com/@crowdsourcethetruth or crowdsourcethetruth.substack.com. You can read the Twitter coup for free on Substack. So become a sponsor, listen to the rest of this information, help us spread this out. I super love the ice cream at this place. Cream line. Anyway, thanks for tuning in, everybody. We'll be back in 5 minutes. Don't go anywhere. Join us in the First Amendment Forum.